Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, and ex-Scotland international and adopted Frenchman, Johnnie Beattie. And we've got an Englishman in Paris joining us on the show very shortly. So we can't wait to have a chat with him and see how he's getting on. But from an Englishman in Paris to a Scotsman in Hossegor, how's your week, Johnny? How you doing?
It's been good. It's been good so far. I think it's about to take an ugly turn. Started off well Sunday again. Covered La Rochelle Toulon, which was great, but now we're dodging the winter vomiting virus, as I think everyone is. It was 30 degrees here today, mate, but everyone's got it. Exactly. It's ridiculous, but the winter vomiting bug, it's been kicked off by everyone sweating too much in 30 degrees. A pile of kids are home. Our middle kid, Cora, came home giving it the, I feel sick. So she's currently up hugging a bucket on the couch watching some Frozen. So I'm waiting for the impending doom and the redecoration of the house in that sort of brown orange color that you spend on your hands and knees mopping up for the next few days. And if you see me looking slim over autumn, you know why. But yeah, just waiting for that to kick in. But otherwise good, mate. All well and healthy for the minute. And you, mate, you've been saying that you've been under the weather as well. Just too many late nights covering the Women's World Cup, or what's been happening?
I think so. Lack of sleep and a diet of nothing but sandwiches is not going to be good for anyone, is it?
And chips. There's always chips.
Through the night in Ealing. Some good games. But
awesome games.
Yeah, none more so than England-France, which was a cracker.
A cracker.
But yeah, I wish I was on the same time zone as them.
I think everyone does, mate.
It's
been awesome it's been great to catch up, as even the ones that we haven't seen live, the catch up and the viewership they've had. I think ITV got nearly 900,000 in a peak for their biggest game for the England game. So it's amazing that the numbers that are tuning in and watching and engaging with it is fantastic. So even if it's not live, highlights afterwards, you're obviously doing a great job on your side of your job.
Tim. Thanks very much.
Done. It's all down to you.
Well, we will keep you on the podcast as long as possible, because clearly you don't want to go and clear up sick. So we should chat some 100%. Before we bring our guest in, we should have a quick chat about the week in French rugby. Never dull. Plenty to discuss.
Yeah.
We'll start with the positives. Fabien Galthié has named his 42-man squad for the Autumn Nations series. So what do you make of it? Any surprises?
No, I think as expected, generally, a couple of surprises because it's on a large squad. There's 42 men, as you mentioned. So Raka back in after terrorizing defences over the past 7 rounds with Clermont. Pablo Uberti from Bordeaux, who's been back in form and causing havoc as well for Bordeaux. A new one that not many people will know is Ethan Dumortier. He scored 2 tries against Montpellier this weekend. It was excellent all round. He's part of the crop that won the Under-20s World Cup in 2019. He came off the bench then. But a winger looks like a massive future ahead of him. Thomas Leclayet, the tight head from Oyonnax. He's the only Pro D2 player. Alexandre Becconnier, the Montpellier back row, who's been in and out. Will he get more game time? We don't know. Léo Berdeux, the standoff from Lyon as well, who's part of that big win at Montpellier for Lyon. Probably going to be third choice behind Intermac and Jalibert, but he's fought off some fairly big names to get there. Reda Wardy from La Rochelle, the loosehead, big aggressive scrummaging, ball carrying, bashing loosehead, who's decent as well, and Jordan Joseph, probably the other wild card. So there's maybe 7 or 8 names that maybe people don't know too much about, but the rest of the squad settles as you would expect. But are any of them going to be bolters and get real game time? We'll wait and see, but the squad right now looks settled and fairly comfortable.
I was going to say, we'll chat about it a bit more nearer the time, but with a squad that big, the names like Leclerc, Berdeux, are they going to get any game time, or are they there for experience? Do you think we'll see quite a settled side throughout all of the games for France?
Well, I don't know. At 10, for instance, you've got Intermac, who's named. He's obviously carrying an ankle injury. You've got Jalibert as well, who's been out with injury as well. So you don't know at what time these guys are going to come back to fitness. It's a real opportunity even for Berdeux to go in and train properly, effectively, and drive training and show what he can do leading in a 10 jersey through the training session. So there's a chance he might get some game time. The other names, Joseph, probably less likely, Leclerc, less likely from Pro D2, but it's a 42-man squad because the intensity of the training they get through and the numbers required are absolutely massive. So it is a big old squad. Are some of those fringe guys going to get game time? I think that'll come down to injuries and availability nearer the test matches when they're announced. But look, they'll be absolutely delighted again to be involved, stick their hand up, be part of the squad, be in front of Fabien Galthié, as we always are, just to be in front of an international coach because they know what you can offer. And therefore, with 1 year to the World Cup, you're able to show what you can do in front of that coaching staff. So maybe not too much change in evolution, but still a big opportunity just to be there for some of those guys, strangely.
Okay, on to the negatives.
Yeah.
Breathe. So they lost 45-7 at home to Toulouse. That can happen, but that's led to Jeremy Davidson losing his job. So we've chatted a bit about them in recent weeks. Is this decision linked to the new investment they've got coming in and increased expectation already, or what's happened?
It's a strange one, and it isn't, because Jeremy Davidson had just signed an extension to 2024, 2025, I think. So a big contract extension for him, and largely across the last 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons, he's done a really good job with Brive. But that game, I'm not sure if that game has just been the straw that's broke the camel's back, but they look totally outclassed and bereft of ideas. And I'm not sure for the new ownership or for whoever is the custodian of the club now, if they said, right, if we're going to make a change, it needs to be now. They've announced 2 supplementary players that are going to sign during the week, but it isn't going to be easy. Like, you have stability and a structure behind the scenes. With Jeremy going now, that makes it more difficult. You've got to scramble midway through the season to get yourself together, find a way of playing, and find a different way of playing really quickly. You've got Arno Mella that's in charge. Arno Mella was coaching at Albi 2 seasons ago in Federal 1. He hasn't had much management experience at the top level, so it's now a massive task for him. It's not like you bring in a really experienced head coach or somebody with a big reputation or somebody that can give you a quick fix. It's untested as well. So it is the nature of the beast. It's disappointing for Jeremy Davidson, who is largely respected for the job he's done with Brive. My worry for them now is when you go into this relegation battle, and don't get me wrong, it's already started between Bayonne, Brive, Perpignan and Pau, is you now lose 2 more games and you're gone. Like, your confidence is shot and you're completely gone. So they need something, a shot in the arm really quickly, an injection of different ideas and ingenuity and confidence that needs to come quickly. And is that going to come from Arno Mella? I'm not quite sure. But the question really is now, can they keep the club in the top 14 before this investment arrives? Because if they go down to Pro D2, it's another rebuild. It's a starting from scratch, and it becomes even more difficult.
And you mentioned the job Jeremy Davidson's done. I think he's been there 4 years, took them up from Pro D2. He's kept them in the top 14, and they've largely been competitive over the last couple of years. So you shouldn't be underestimated how big a job that is. Other people wouldn't have been able to achieve those things.
No, not at all. And look, he did the same thing with Aurillac and Pro D2 previously. It wasn't glamorous rugby, but it was winning rugby. They won their home games. They managed to pick off a few opponents on the road, and they just found a way of getting things done. But I think for him, unfortunately, it's just been the manner of that defeat. He's been given the boot effectively straight after the final whistle, which is never nice to go through. And there was meetings going on through the game. Apparently, there's been in the French press meetings through the game to say, look, this can't go on. We need to change. And so it's disappointing for him, disappointing for the club. Can they turn it around and change the way they're playing? I'm not sure. I think it's going to be really hard. But for him, on a personal level, to have that go on and to be given the boot after kickoff or the day after must have been extremely hard as well. So disappointing for him, hard for Brive. But I think it's going to get hard over the next few weeks to find a pattern of playing, find confidence and win some games quickly.
You mentioned you were covering the Sunday night game between La Rochelle and Toulon. We spoke a bit about it last week, and you said it's always going to be tough to beat La Rochelle at home, clearly, but Toulon playing well, you could see potentially it happening, but La Rochelle had too much in the second half, didn't they?
They were exceptional. And that as well, given the team that Toulon went there with some real expectations, it was a war. Like, the gain line war it was almost hard to watch at some bits, but carries by Skelton, Antonio, like Greg Aldred again. Greg was absolutely exceptional. They're just so hard to contain. And then defensively, they're so solid. Work by Raymond Rule, Jonathan Dante, they just shut out any time or space that Toulon had, and they couldn't cope. And as I said, they went there with a big team to try and turn La Rochelle over, but that was almost effectively a big marker laid down by La Rochelle to say, come here effectively at your peril, because they were utterly dominant. And they bludgeoned Toulon through the game. I think they had 3 tries, rolling mauls. But throughout the game, whenever it got into multi-phase or phase play, La Rochelle just absolutely bullied them.
And the champions, Montpellier, they lost at home to Lyon, didn't they?
Yeah, and I'd say that's the pick of the week's results. Going to the champions and turning them over convincingly was some result. Berdeux, he's been picked up in the French squad as a third choice 10. He was excellent. Tofua was good, a run back in the team for him. But globally, they looked hungry. Again, after me criticizing them last week and saying I didn't really know how they were trying to play, what they were trying to do, they went away from home and found a really big performance. So really impressed by them. Their backline as well, I thought was misfiring and didn't know what was happening, but came up with some really nice combinations, broke down the Montpellier defensive line, and time after again got them on the back foot and converted their chances. So probably the result of the weekend for Lyon, a massive result away from home.
And another team that we said probably needed a big win, Bordeaux at home to Racing, they got one.
Yeah, finally. And I think mentally, if nothing else, that's absolutely what they needed. Loads of criticism in the press for how they're playing, confidence, heads down. Christophe Urios being asked tough questions week in, week out in press conferences and getting a little bit tasty. And they just needed a win. And one team that they seem to have had a lot of joy against over the past 2-3 seasons has been Racing. They seem to have smashed them every time I can remember. They're playing, they've won away in Paris as well recently, a couple of times as well. But a big result. They just ground Racing down. They didn't have enough to stop them. And Bordeaux finally, 6-7 games in, looking like the side that we've seen over the past 2-3 seasons. So a big win for them, but more importantly, a big mental stepping stone onto getting back on the horse.
Let's get our guest on now then. And he's a man who swapped England for New York State and has now made Paris his home. Racing 92 winger, former NFL man, Wasps, England star. Christian Wade joins us. How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? Feeling absolutely great right now. We actually just finished our first big day of the week. So tomorrow's the day off, which most professionals always look forward to. So, I'm chilled right now.
Good. And how is Paris treating you? And if you've got a day off tomorrow, what are your plans?
Well, funny enough, although it's a day off, it's really just like a day off from the everyday schedule with rugby. I'm still going to be quite busy. I've actually got a few interviews I'm doing tomorrow, and then just moved into a new house over here as well. So trying to organize furniture and going back to America to sort out my house over there, to bring stuff over and shipping and stuff. So, it's a day off from, the mental side of things, watching video or film, as they were saying in America. But it obviously gives me the opportunity to do other stuff, which is obviously quite important. As you get older, you have more responsibilities and stuff like that. So,
amen, Johnny. As you get older.
Amen. As we get older. It happens to us all. It's an admin day. It's an admin day. That's what your wife would tell you. Mate, you got married about a year ago. So was the move to Paris an easy sell? Was she up for moving to Paris?
I mean, to be honest, my wife's a model, influencer, and media presenter type of thing. So she, she's very open to new stuff in terms of moving. She was with me in London, or should I say in Coventry, when I was with Wasps, and then when I obviously decided to retire and start, getting ready for a big move, which obviously wasn't dead certain that would happen. I was kind of bouncing around from hotels to hotels. It was just quite a tough time as well. She was with me through that. And then went to Florida for like the 4-month camp to then try and get onto a team. So, moving around is something that we've been doing for the last 5 years. So, yeah, when obviously the opportunity came up to go to Paris, I think she was a bit like, oh no, we're moving from New York, somewhere where she's more familiar with. We've been for the last 4 years. But she was definitely up for the adventure, and, moving to Paris, which is, another huge fashion capital. There's opportunities there that we could open up for her career, as well as mine. So it's something new for both of us. We're adjusting as well as we can. But everything's been going well so far, and like you said, we got married. It's nearly a year. Like it's on the 21st or 22nd is our anniversary. So,
mate, don't forget that date. It's important, mate. It's the first one. Don't
first
fuck it
one,
up.
especially.
Yeah, I need to double check. But I've always got training as an excuse for how we do it the day after, babe, or the day before.
You won't be short of places in Paris to find a present, I'm sure, Christian. You'll be fine.
And so, mate, how did that move to Racing come about? Look, you've already touched on so many points, Wasps, the NFL, like we'll try to unpack everything. But initially and most recently, the move to Racing, because we saw you playing in a 7 events there, and then the contract was signed soon after. But how did it all happen? How did that pan out on the move back?
So you probably saw it in like the media and stuff. After getting hurt in the NFL, they kept me on for the year, and then basically once I was fit and healthy, or near enough fit and healthy, they had released me just at the beginning of like OTAs. Would have been my 4th year over there. So they released me after that, and I was looking at some other teams potentially going and doing some workouts, some tryouts and stuff with other teams and stuff. But ultimately, I was looking at the options to go back into rugby. But from going from rugby, which is professional in its own right, to the NFL, it's a million miles apart. And it's not just because of the money, but it's just the way and the culture, I guess it's the mindset of everybody, including coaches, staff, management, players across the board. Coming back into rugby would be like not necessarily a backward step, but I didn't want it to be a backward step. So I was, keen to look at going back into rugby, but I wanted to make sure I went somewhere where I could still, better myself as an athlete, because that's all I ever care about anyway. Never really cared about money, as long as I could pay the bills and take care of the family. But it's always been about trying to be the best I can be. You say the best I can. I'm trying to be the best. Like I want to be the best at what I do. And like I said, I want to learn every day. I want to get better. And the NFL gave me that for 3 years, which is amazing. So coming back into rugby, I felt like it. There was a lot of years where I wasn't able to do that. And when I did kind of push for that, I was blocked. And that's ultimately what pushed me to want to retire from the sport and try something else. So going back, I went, open my eyes up to a lot of new things. I've experienced some stuff that, no rugby player is ever going to experience unless they decide to make that move. So I see myself as, set apart from everybody in a completely different way now. So I believe I have a lot to offer. And, I wanted to go to a team that would understand that, and a team that would also, see the benefit in having me in the locker room with the team, and also being able to put performances out there on the field. So that was kind of a long answer, but ultimately I was shopping around a little bit, putting a couple feelers out there. The media kind of caught wind of it through Van Dell. I think Chris Ashton got
his fault.
Yeah. Chris Ashton got the record, so then obviously Van Dell was the former record holder for most tries in the Premiership. I was at 3rd, now I'm in 4th, I think. And ultimately, Wandel just said, if Christian has anything to do with it, then Ashton won't be number 1 for much longer. And so obviously, when teams saw that I was doing media saying, I am interested in rugby, people started putting 2 and 2 together. So I basically went around to a few different clubs in private type thing, had a few conversations, and Racing was among those teams. And, ultimately I went down there. They invited me over for 7 days, for a week, did some training, had a look at the facilities. And I saw that they were playing in the Sevens tournament. And, I had been lucky enough to play with players like Ollie Phillips and Dan Norton. And I didn't actually play with Tom Biggs, but he was someone who I looked up to coming through, playing on the Sevens circuit. Played against him in 15s and stuff. And they were coaching China Sevens. So I saw that as an opportunity for me to, while I was back home, to train with them, get some, throw the ball about a little bit, see if I still had the skills. Nah, I'm joking. I still had it, but I just wanted to, get a feel for the ball. I hadn't watched rugby for about 4 or 5 years. And yeah, like I said, fast forward to being at Racing, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to like, maybe play with the sevens team if you guys, wanted some help and stuff. And, they looked at it as an opportunity to have a look at me as well, see how what my fitness levels are like and stuff. And, once we did that, next thing both parties are happy. And I said, if you guys would want me to be here, which ultimately they did, we signed on the dotted line. So that's kind of how it came about.
And presumably, like you said, you would have had other offers. Racing, you've mapped out there why it's such an attractive proposition. Who was it at Racing who approached you? Was it someone? Was the owner? Was it someone on the coaching staff?
It's basically done through like agent friends of mine, in terms of looking at teams who I thought would be cool to kind of look at, really. So obviously Racing, I would say is, if not the best, has the best setup in the world probably. And obviously now I've been there for nearly 2 months. I see why, and obviously the big part of that is Jackie's, his mindset and his love for the game, but also his business acumen as well, to be able to run it like a real business. And also he wants to win championships, and the way he's doing it is family orientated. And, for me, family is everything, just like my faith. And, I can see why they're going to be a successful team in years to come. And it's not like a short-term plan. It's real long, it's going to go on for decades. So, you're only going to see great things happening for Racing, if not in the near future, if I have anything to do with it, but definitely in the long term.
What was it like getting back involved? Like, obviously there's physiological differences in the NFL and rugby, and the conditioning is completely different. But what were again, for me, different sport, but I understand there'll be massive differences. So when you moved to the NFL running back, what did they want to change or alter? Obviously you've got incredible talent, but what did they want to build on and apply? And then coming back to rugby, what are the things you've had to alter or change again, moving back into like a 15s cardiovascular, constantly running? What are the big differences that you noticed?
Yeah, so the first thing was they wanted to put size on, because obviously with rugby, we're having to run for 80 minutes, usually like at a constant pace. There's obviously some walking involved as well, but you're on the field in the action for 80 minutes. Whereas obviously in the NFL, they need your skill at 100%, if not 110%, for 6 to 10 seconds, and then you're gonna get a 40-second rest. And so putting on size is something that would naturally happen anyway, because you're probably still going to eat the same amount you eat, if not a little bit more. You're going to be obviously doing a lot more explosive training, strength training, stuff that's going to make you bulletproof. But then you're not going to have to, you're not going to sweat as much or shed as much weight as you would when you're, like in a game of rugby, we'd be running 6, 7, 8K in games, and training probably 4 or 5K and stuff. So it's one of those ones where, if I'm trying to remember, I'll probably be running about 2K in like NFL training sessions. So you're not running as far, but like those 2K are like high speed meters, all of them, or probably most of them.
And saying that, is going one way to NFL and not having to do like the nasty cardiovascular, which was my least favorite part of rugby training, quite nice, right? Putting on bulk and like explosive power, explosive training, I really enjoyed. And then coming back to rugby, has that been really hard, almost starting from nothing and having to build that back in? Because it's one of the hardest bits to build into your physical side.
Yeah, I think like I enjoyed, obviously, like you said, going into NFL, because it's like you get to do all the cool stuff, the stuff that everybody likes, the glamorous stuff, and then the stuff that actually looks cool when you're in the game. So like, scoring or making a break, breaking somebody's ankles, making people miss. That's all like the explosive, like speed work stuff. And then even like, jumping to catch a ball or diving to catch a ball and stuff like that. if you're in the open field and you're running as a receiver or a slot receiver. But funny enough, I was a bit worried as well coming back into rugby because I've been doing training that anaerobic like system, for 4 years. Coming back, I was like, it's gonna be like
Hard.
like, yeah. But, we actually don't really do fitness tests at all in the NFL. Our only cardio test was like trying to remember what they called them now. It's crazy. It's crazy. But basically, we'd run from sideline to sideline and back. So it was like over and back. You have to do it in 16 seconds. So if they'll basically say don't let the clock hit 17 seconds. So you had up to 16.99 to get over and back. And the field is 53 yards wide. So it's basically like 100, let's just call it 110 yards in 17 seconds. So you basically 100 meters in 17 seconds. It's not very fast, right? So
you can do that.
Yeah,
mate, you can do that quicker than you can do your first Bronco. When you get back into racing, you'd be like, what have I changed back for?
Exactly. So it's like over and back in this rolling clock. Basically, you do that, and then you get 40 seconds rest and go again. And there's no down ups, you know what I mean? There's no down ups. It's literally just foot on the line, go there and back. And you have to do that times 10. And I remember the first time I did it, I was just like, how many sets are we doing? And we got to like rep 6, 7. And it was like, just one. I was like, okay, let me not say,
I can do this.
Anything more, because you know how it usually is. The more talking you do, the more sets they're gonna throw in. But yeah, it was just one set, and that was our like cardio, or should I say our fitness test on day 1 of training camp. And I was just like, that's sweet. But to be honest, when you're training that different system, it catches up with you. You get to about rep 7 or 8. And you do feel your lungs a little bit. It's nothing crazy, but you do kind of have to work up to it, which is it's quite nuts. And then obviously as you are heavier, so the quarterbacks would have 18 seconds, and then the heavies they would have 20 seconds to do it. And basically, if you didn't complete that, then you have to keep doing it until you could complete the test and get it under the seconds. But most people did it on day 1.
You talk about how much size you put on when you went to the NFL. Do you know how much you've lost since you came back to rugby? Do you know how much weight you've lost?
Yeah, so I mean, funny enough, when I left rugby, I was probably like 85 kg, 84 maybe. And then when I went over to the NFL, I put on about 6 kg, 7 kg. So I was like 200 pounds. Which is about 90 kg, 90, 91. And then when I obviously did my shoulder, I lost a lot of weight, obviously. And then I probably went down to about 82, 81. And then obviously now I'm back up to like 85. So it's kind of weird, like because of the injury, it obviously enabled me to, I guess, down-regulate the way I've been training and then build it back up with the new energy system now I want to use. So I guess it kind of, worked out.
Mate, what I liked earlier was you're talking about earlier being blocked from being the best version of yourself that you wanted to be. And that was what pushed you to move it to the NFL. And like, I've had conversations like weirdly with a teammate of yours, with Richie Gray. So Richie Gray, who you toured with the Lions on 2013. Like I remember played for Scotland together, but chatting to him, and he'd had like pipe dreams of like, because he's a really talented athlete, like a freak for how big he is. And he was like, I reckon I could try out and make it as a tight end, but like I wouldn't want anyone to know. I wouldn't want to lose my contract. I wouldn't want to lose the security. But you did all that. You came to the end of your contract and said, I don't need my this many £1,000 coming from Wasps. I'm going to go and try this NFL and try something different because I believe myself and I want to do it. And you're the 1% of rugby players that physically could do it, and then probably the 1% that mentally had the fortitude to try and do it as well. So I wanted to go back to the start where you said that you were blocked from being the best version of yourself. And what was it you felt about rugby or the environment that you were in that capped you? And how was the process of realizing, actually, I think I could do NFL and I could give this a go, and then putting it into putting it into action? Like, where were those points in time for you, and how did it all come around?
Just working my way through. You have your selection issues and stuff like that. But as a kid, you're just like, you're just gonna keep going hard, keep trying, do what you can. I used to work with Julian Golden, who's a close friend of the family. Ex-Commonwealth, ex-Olympic champion. Speed work, different stuff like that. And I've just always wanted to just be the best I can be for myself, because that's what you hear a lot of the time. But then as I got older and was getting better at the sport, I had a few coaches who really invested in me, but then I also had other coaches who, it was a bit of a weird situation where I probably wasn't getting coached, but, I was being used to score tries, or sometimes not being used and not knowing why. And I think just ultimately I got to a point where I had enough experience. I played with a lot of different players, and the way that I was able to get better was just through talking to players and working with them rather than with coaches. Because it was only at the time maybe 2 or 3 coaches who really invested in me or actually coached me, which I couldn't really understand. Because you want to be the best, you need to be coached. You need the coaches should be wanting to invest in the players in the team, and it just felt like it was something else, a lot of the time, and especially if you're the star player or you're scoring a lot of tries, surely you'd want to work with those players to help them get to the next level and keep. When I say the next level, I mean the next level of performance, not the next level in terms of playing for England and all the other stuff, because growing up, I really cared about that stuff. But then when it got to 2015, I kind of just washed my hands of it, because it was just I feel like you play rugby in England, all anybody cares about is playing for England. But everybody's going to play for England. I've got 1 cap. Most people who play in the Premiership have probably got a cap. It doesn't mean a lot. And it might be just because of the experience I've had, but I'm sure there's loads of other people I speak to who've had a similar experience where they just kind of haven't understood why or what's really been going on. And then we're not the best team in the world. And then it just kind of begs to differ, what's the real kind of the aim of English rugby, And for me, if we have coaches who just coach and make players better, have people that have, teach people about mindset, want to actually develop their mind, develop their gameplay, and teaching them how to play the game, it could really help to elevate our sport in general.
No, but it's really interesting when you look at what's happening, and we'll talk about Wasps and other clubs in a minute. But just in general, when you look at our sport and the state of the game and what's happened with Worcester and Wasps and potentially Ellie Giltini's bad news coming out of there as well, potentially the next few days, a different model in America, but more generally the culture. What do you think that we can look at and take from American football and apply to rugby globally that's going to help us? You've mentioned their mindset, coaching, development, individual personal development aspects, but there must be many more things that you've seen and felt and been exposed to now that you think could help take rugby to another level.
My biggest thing, I've actually just set up a foundation called Next Gen U, and the slogan is feel good, play good, game ready, right? And the way I see it is, I didn't grow up in a private school or around money and stuff like that. I'm from a working class. I see rugby as a sport that can change lives the way it's changed mine and so many others. But there is just some stuff in the sport which, it doesn't make sense. Usually if it doesn't make sense, there's probably some other stuff going on, right? But, it's not for me to kind of go into that. Ultimately, I think that rugby is a great game that should be played across the world. It's still very much in the private school kind of sector. I think if you open it up and start to look at the sport and how it can help change people, help have an influence on people, and that's everybody, that the sport would then start to thrive. You know what I mean? I think that's part of the issue, starting from the ground up. Because if you look at American sports, it's amazing to see. I spent some time with a good friend of mine, John Brown. He used to play for the Baltimore Ravens, started off at Arizona Cardinals, and then ultimately ended up with the Bills, the Raiders, and then Tampa Bay, with Tom Brady as well. And so he's had 8, 9, 10 years as an NFL athlete, and he started off his little league team, which is like a flag football team, and you've got like 5, 6 year olds already acting like professionals, and some people will say, oh, that's not good, but it's just like, no, they're actually having fun, but they're just being taught the fundamentals and being coached how to catch the ball properly, you know. So they're like little professionals when they're playing, but they're still kids, and they'll be in the house running around using footwork on me, and I'm like, yo, this is nuts. But you know, if the sport wasn't widely open to everybody, you know, you're gonna miss out on a pool of kids and ultimately a pool of professionals that could help elevate the game because of, well, I'm not sure what the reason is, but it's just small things like that. So obviously with my foundation, I obviously want to you know, use the private schools because they have the guys who already play the game, and hopefully mix those guys with other guys who maybe haven't played or who would like to play, to all, so everyone's coming together. So then you have a nice mix of people who are keen to play rugby, who actually want to learn, and ultimately that's the whole, feel good, play good, game ready, bringing a different culture to it. I have live music at my camps. My younger brother's a drummer. I have music, little dance offs and stuff. There's a nice little, couple of little stuff that I do in there, all with a professional aspect, just so that people can see rugby in a different light, so that when they come, it's not like, oh, this is the same old like rugby, rugby, rugby. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just a game played by kids, which eventually gets changed and it becomes about something else, and then people are chasing after stuff like Richie. With Richie Gray, he wants to do this, but he has a security, and it's a game that it can do wonders, but there's something that happens in between where you either come out the other end with a positive light, or you come out with a negative light. And I think that you'll see in America that regardless of when the guys make it to the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, whatever, they always come out with a positive light. You know what I mean? I had some of the best days of my life. College ball was amazing. I got to do this, I got to do that. You'd think they played in the NFL for 10 years, and it's just like, in rugby, it's not always that way. And I think that, there's lots that can be done. The potential is massive. It's a game that I love. It's a game that's changed my life and changed many people's life, like I said. But, it needs to kind of be delivered differently, I think.
And obviously hearing you speak about that, you're obviously very passionate about that. And it seems like you've got a much more positive outlook on rugby. Now you're obviously back in the sport, and hopefully you've got a good few years to come really positively giving to the sport and the sport giving to you. But you did mention back there that in 2015, you sort of washed your hands of the whole England thing. It didn't seem like a very positive environment for you. And you mentioned as well sort of being given a lot of maybe excuses or reasons that you didn't quite understand about why you weren't being picked in certain environments, particularly with England. So I remember hearing you as well say at one point, I think you ignored a call because you were just like, I know what it's going to be. I know exactly what's going to be said. So it's just going back to then, it's difficult, isn't it? When you're in that environment, you're scoring tries for fun, and you're still not getting to that level that you think you deserve to be at. So what was that like at the time?
I mean, it's quite frustrating, you feel the top try scorer of the league consistently for 8 years or whatever it was. I don't really know what, what I'm saying. If you're in the NBA, you're top point scorer, you're gonna be representing your country. You're gonna have like people who want to work with you to like see if you could get better, or if you suggest to do something to try and elevate your game, you would expect people to want to like help do that stuff, but it would be like, oh, almost like, oh, I'm at my peak, so you can't get any better. That's the kind of vibe I would get, and it's just like, well, obviously it's not good enough because I'm not getting picked. So, I'm of this. That's how I'm wired. I want to be the best, and if I'm not playing for England, then I'm obviously not the best. You know what I mean? I don't need to be like, oh, I'm the best. I'm doing this and whatever. Like I should be being picked. If I'm not being picked, then I'm obviously not good enough. So I want to be better. Who can I go to help coach me? It wasn't really anybody in the rugby world. So I would then seek my own coaches, do my own training, which helped to maintain the level I could play at. It might not it might not give me the skills that people maybe wanted me to have, or maybe think I didn't have. But it definitely it enabled me to put the performances out there, which kept people on the edge of their seats, which kept me, having the stats I would have. And then, like I said, when I did have coaches that came along, like Rob Hoadley, Brad Davis, Sean Edwards, Ben Ryan, you know, then at those times, that's when my game did go up and elevate. But other than that, I was just relying on talent, and great players who I was able to play with to help teach me. Anybody I play with, you will know, like, yeah, where he's always trying to like learn. He'd come and speak to me about this and watch video with guys, like watch other sports as well, seeing what I can learn, because I'm literally like a sponge. But I just feel, in my career that there's so many opportunities for me to have taken my game to another level, but there's no resource for it.
And some of those coaches you mentioned there, in terms of the ones that had a real positive effect on you, were defence coaches. Sean Edwards, best defence coach we've ever seen. Brad Davis, really respected in that world. At that time, when you were getting frustrated, and I don't know what the excuses or the reasons that people were giving you in terms of England selection were, but I've heard you talk about it in the past, that there was a lot of kind of, I suppose you describe it as lazy journalism at the time, sort of saying, well, Christian scores tries for fun, but his defence is like this or that. And it almost felt like that was a frustration for you, because you felt that was an area that you worked on and you'd improved, and it was good, but it was almost like people didn't have to watch carefully what you were doing. They'd just go to that, oh, that's why he's not getting picked, because of that.
Yeah, well, it's the media, so it's just like media don't know what they don't know. And there's no one really knows anyway, because from England coaches, those weren't, and the reasons I would get, there wouldn't really be any reasons. It just wouldn't happen for me. So ultimately, to keep the story going, people had to report on something. So that's obviously, they would just go for those things. But after a while, I was just kind of like, it was frustrating, but I never really read media stuff anyway. It's just what people would say. And then I think I spoke about it before with Brad Davis. He actually was like, no, let me actually pay attention to this and have a look, analyze my game, look at past videos. And he was just like, you're actually one of the best defenders in the league for your position. And so who's playing for England misses X amount of tackles, this, that, is like, ninth, 10th in the league. So, just continue to ignore that stuff. We'll keep working, because he knows the type of player I am. And, I just go from strength to strength. Now, when it comes to defense, like, or at the time then, and obviously going forward, I was, I could help to communicate, help other people around me so that they could be better defenders, be able to read the game well, track the ball in defense. I love defense, so it's one of those things. Obviously, I'm never going to be the dude to like make big crunching tackles like all the time because of my size. But at the end of the day, tackle's a tackle, as long as you do your job, that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? But aside from that, who's going to score the same amount of tries I can score? Who's going to be the person that when the game is up against the wall or we've got our backs, who you looking for in the field? You know what I mean? Those are the things that when it comes to a game, because that's what it is at the end of the day, if you want to win, those are the things you're looking for. Who's got X factor, like who can do all the things and, still bring that X factor when it's needed. because that's when you see the true character of players, right? When there's adversity or there's discomfort, who can still perform, who can still apply the pressure, even when the pressure's been on them the whole game. Um, yeah, so it's been a journey, mate. It's been a journey, but it's definitely like I said, I've had the experience of all the rugby stuff at all the levels up to Lions, and then I've been to America for 4 years with one of the best teams in the league as well. As you can see, they're still getting better and better, and I'm still in contact with a lot of the guys. Josh Allen, Levi Davis, now moved to a different team. Zach Moss, or all the running backs, Motor Singletary, Tyrell. There's so many players, across the league, not just at the Bills, that their mindset matches mine, and that's why when I went there, I felt so comfortable, and it just helped take me to another level in my mindset as well, because I was just like, all these years in rugby thinking that I'm the odd one out, and why doesn't anyone else think how I think? Is there something wrong with me? Going to there and just feeling absolutely at peace and saying, "Oh, this is why," because I'm an elite professional, and I need to be around people who think the same. Otherwise, I'm gonna be uncomfortable, and not in a good way. Not it's not the uncomfortable. It's not the living in the uncomfortable so that sorry, it's not being comfortable in the uncomfortable environments where you're working hard. It's the uncomfortable because it's like a thorn in your side. Like, you don't want that thorn in your side. You want to take it out because it's just an annoyance. We're trying to get somewhere. What can we do to get this to this point? Rather than just kind of resting on our laurels.
No, I mean, I think it's much harder to be that type of driver. And when you talk about the people that are uncomfortable when it's comfortable, those are your leaders and your drivers and the people that want to drive change. And Sean Edwards is probably a good example of exactly that. Like you mentioned Tim and Brad Davies a little bit earlier. And like mentioning those guys, we have to mention your old club. As a former Wasp player and somebody who did so much for the club and scored so many tries, and the club having done so much for you, what do you make of everything that's happening at the moment? Have you spoken to teammates and ex-teammates and checked in? What do you make of it all?
I haven't. I mean, I've spoken to a couple of teammates, but a lot of the guys who were teammates of mine have already left. So I haven't been able to speak to, the guys who are still there that I played with. I've spoken to Ashley Johnson, Bialo, who's kind of just joined there, and today I was just catching up with one of the younger guys, Gabriel Oger, as well. But yeah, it's extremely sad, to be honest. I don't really know. It's hard to find words, because I know we was in a similar position before Derek Richardson came on. When Steve Hayes was had a meeting with us and saying, he's looking to sell us, and if we don't find a buyer, we could go into admin and issues with being paid late and stuff like that. So I remember I'm familiar with the feelings around the time, but from what I'm hearing, the guys who had obviously been through it before didn't think that this would actually happen, because we came out of it last time, and Wasps is such a strong brand, a strong club. It's been around for years, it's just sad that it basically is, in the position it is now, but with COVID and stuff, even if someone wanted to come in and save the club, I feel as though maybe the situation with the economy right now as well, it's just too risky, right? But on the flip side, it's like, but you've got 40 plus players who now don't have a job, which is absolutely crazy to me. I just don't really. It's hard to like fathom, what would be like if I was in that position right now, which could easily have been situation for me. You know, what would I do right now? You know, it's a hard it's a hard pill to swallow, even though I'm not there. You know, because I know some of the guys that have been there, some of the guys that are there, and I mean, I went in to see the boys in pre-season this year actually. So I saw a lot of the staff members who were still there, and I was happy to see them, happy to see me. It's been 4 or 5 years, and just to think that now they don't have jobs, it's just it's crazy.
I was going to mention you going in pre-season actually. Was there a time when you thought you might go back there? Did you come close to coming back? Obviously, it's a blessing now that you didn't, given everything that's unfolding. But there were a lot of rumours at the time, and you did go in and see them. So was that something that could have happened?
I mean, there's always the potential for stuff, but to be honest, I wasn't really looking to go back there. The Midlands life's not really for me, and with the stuff that I've got going on off the field, I was looking more at different areas of England, and then also looking at, like I said, from my point of view, what I was trying to achieve in terms of the motivation to want to play rugby again and to take my game to continue to learn. I'm not just trying to go to work so I can collect a salary every month, because that's just not been one of my main drivers. But like I said, it still could have been an option.
You're still only 31, mate, which is ridiculous. You're still a young man. So what is it that you would like to achieve? Like, if you set out like those clubs weren't right for you, this is what I'd like to achieve. What does the future look like? If you could path out, what are you hoping to achieve over the next 2-3 seasons?
Well, to be honest, I have not been able to win like any major championships. I've been in finals, I've been in semi-finals, and then in sevens, more of the same really. So my main thing is, like I said, I want to take my game to another level, because I still feel like if I could have, like a coach like Brad Davis. I forgot to mention like my under 18s coaches as well, like John Fletcher and Peter Walton, those two as well. They definitely helped me with my development in the early years. Mark Mapletoft. I've had some great coaches, I could tell you that. A couple of great coaches in the early days, but if I could have like a coach that I could work with, I just have this burning desire to like really like want to understand rugby, because I went to America was playing for 3 years, and like just be to the amount of detail and like learning the game and stuff, and then coming back to rugby, I'm like, do I even really know rugby that well? You know what I mean? Like, it makes me question, like, yeah, I've been able to do great stuff and play with some great teams, but like, do I even really know this game that well, understand it? Because the detail that we've been going into in the NFL, I'm like, I could talk to you about NFL for hours and hours. I mean, I could probably do that with rugby, but probably not in the same amount of detail, which is just, it's kind of crazy.
Clearly the setup there is really professional. It's suiting you down to the ground at the moment. Are you seeing yourself there for the long term in Paris with wrestling, or is it just for the rest of the season and then see what happens?
I mean, it's really like see what happens and stuff, because I'm just coming fresh out of retirement. I've only signed obviously for 1 year, and so obviously I want to see if I can still, see if it's still possible to achieve those stuff. Because although I'm obviously going to push for it, there's still going to be, it's not all down to me, So hopefully, in terms of the stuff I want to achieve, I would like to stay at Racing, because of the setup they have, and like I said, they've got a great owner, some good people there as well. So that would obviously be amazing. But it's still a business as well, so we'll have to wait and see what happens over the the course of the season. But yeah, ultimately, being in France is pretty good. But there are other options as well. As I was saying before, I was able to kind of go to the different markets just to see what the situation was. Um, so yeah, we'll just just take it week by week really, which is kind of how I'm wired now as well. I'm actually wired day by day because in the NFL, you can get the call at any moment. Um, so it's not even week to week or like year to year. Like in rugby, you can get real comfortable. I'm like, every session, like I want to do something. I want to do this, I want to do that. You can't wait for the weekend. You can't wait for, all right, next week or next month. It's like, nah, you need to do something now. Otherwise, you could be gone.
And this is the least day-by-day question ever, but I was going to say, obviously, Racing do have Stuart Lancaster coming in as head coach next season, and he gave you your England cap. You obviously worked with him. He may have also been one that gave you reasons why he wasn't picking you as well. But how would you look at that in terms of him coming in next season? Loads of water to go under the bridge before then, but is he someone that you would look forward to working under again?
Oh yeah, nah, for sure. Like you said, like he was someone that, well, he's the only one that gave me my chance at England. Before him, I think it was Martin Johnson, and I was just coming through the ranks at that point. Um, then Stuart came in. I think he was like interim for a little bit, and they gave him like the main job, and he gave my chance on that as well. I was doing sections. Well, actually, my first year I went to this big South Africa tour in 2011, which was amazing. Just to be with those guys and playing midweek games was amazing. Then 2012 was the 11-12 season. Then the following year is when he took me on to the Argentina tour. I had my first cap, and now he definitely was a coach. Although it's like England, so that was a bit different, with them every day. But my game definitely elevated underneath that, the style of play and how the skills that we used to do, and he even opened up like the England facility. He was like, if there's anything you guys need, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to help you with speed and all this stuff. So he was definitely like a revolutionary coach for England, I would say. And he, I wouldn't necessarily get excuses from him. It would just be who, we're gonna go with this guy or whatever, which was fine. And then, I got hurt, but he's probably the only person who brought me back into camp because even though I was injured, which I was very grateful for as well, just to feel like I was still part of the team. And then after that was kind of like the World Cup year. Well, actually, I got injured again. I was out for the whole season, so it was tough. He had me in and around the squad the whole time he was involved, which for me meant a lot. Especially, it probably means a lot more now than it did at the time as well, where you know someone with a high pressure job, you've got a lot of guys to look at. But I mean, ultimately, 2015 kind of put a nail in the coffin for me as well, though, when I might not have had the best season after being out for a year, but I was still able to, achieve some great stuff. And then I finished off the year scoring a hat trick against the Barbarians, and then to be told, in essence, that you're not one of the top 6 wingers in the country, I was just like, mate, this is, now I know that there's other stuff going on, and there's no point me trying to push to play for a team that's obviously not pushing for greatness. You know what I mean? And that's where my motivation moved to just trying to be the best that can play, that the best ring in the league, because if I focused my attention and energy on England, that was going to bring me down. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's not about England. It's not about your club. It's about the game of rugby and how it inspired me, how it's inspired other people and changed my life. And that's really what's enabled me to be motivated all the time and keep going, because, everybody's human. And so I don't put my trust in people as such. I put it in the game of rugby and what it can do for people. And, I then control my destiny at that point, which is to enjoy it, to be the best, and to have fun.
And your focus obviously shifted after that 2015, but then Eddie Jones came in. So did you have conversations with him subsequently as well or not? Or was that very much you'd kind of parked that?
Well, I don't. To be honest, I don't really know Eddie Jones like at all. To be honest, I think he had me come into like a mini camp one time for like a week. I can't really remember. It's like such a long time ago, but yeah, he's just a bit of just a different guy, He's just a different guy. Um, yeah, it's just a different dude. But obviously he's had some success in the years, and then obviously he did pretty well with England so far. Um, but yeah, it's just I mean, I don't really watch England games and stuff like that. Last 4 years, obviously I've been away. Prior to that, like I said, my attention was more on other stuff. But yeah, I can't really answer. I don't really know.
And go back to Stuart Lancaster, obviously coming into Racing, that was really interesting what Christian said there, because when you talk about the kind of coach that you want, Christian, to sort of elevate your game to another level, from everything that the players in Leinster say at the moment, that could well be Stuart Lancaster.
So when I heard the news that he was coming, some guys were like, "Oh, like the one that didn't pick you." I was just like, "Man, like it is what it is." Like I've never got, like, he didn't ask any coach. Like if I don't get picked, I don't get in a strop about it. Like I said, I use it to like get better some more, because obviously I'm not good enough, right? So that's just kind of how I push it. It was never like, well, yeah, I know I'm good, like, I'm not going to do this. I just go keep working harder. So, if not even if, I think it was rumors before if, but now it's confirmed. If I'm at Racing, I think it would be amazing, obviously, to work with him again. Because yeah, like I remember, I think it was his first year at Leinster actually. We went and played them in the semi-final, and they beat us. But just the way that he had, brought Leinster back to the top, because they weren't doing as well before that, and we used to like beat them every year. Well, we had some good contests, but I think we had beat them like 3 out of the 4 times. But that year we went over there, it was a different team, and I know that he would have been a big reason for that as well, because even if you look at England when Stuart was involved, we weren't we were very low in the rankings, and when he came in, the style of rugby we played was good. We started seeing some younger guys like myself come through, and he basically birthed the England team that we saw Ed Joe kind of take on that long winning streak. Players like Marrow, I remember being in the Saxon squad with him, and that's all Stuart. So it would be very exciting to work with him again, but it's sport, and you never know what's going to happen, and we'll have to just wait and see.
And obviously, you've given us so much detail on so many different subjects, but just going back to the one strand that runs throughout everything you've said, which is your motivation is always to better yourself, and you go for the challenge, and you want the biggest challenge and to make the biggest success of yourself. Going to the NFL is one thing, and achieving what you managed to achieve there, I wonder if there's a little bit of frustration that you didn't achieve, I'm sure, more, which is what you wanted to achieve, and why you think that was, if it's just too tough to crack when you haven't started playing American football when you're about 3 years old. But also this challenge of coming back to rugby, moving to Paris, taking it up again, is this an even bigger challenge?
I mean, I think with the NFL stuff, it was always going to be like a tough mountain to climb, but I think that, in all honesty, it's always going to be hard for people who haven't been through the system or have been involved with American sport to like really understand like the intricacies of it, because to be at a team is like, that is the goal, rather than to make a 53 or to play games as such. And the reason I say that is because let's take England for instance. If you don't play for England, then what happens? Okay, you're not getting paid as much for your club. You're not getting paid the money per game. You're not getting the extra money for commercial stuff. You're not getting any endorsements and stuff because club games don't get this. So that's why you want to play for England, right? With the NFL, whether you're a head coach, like a position coach, the PR girl or the PR guy, there's a job for everybody, and everybody in America wants to play, or should I say, be involved with the NFL in any capacity, whether it's a player or staff, just like the NBA and the other sports. So the goal is to just have the badge or to represent the badge. You see what I mean? So for me, to be in the NFL for 3.5, 4 years, that was the dream, that was the goal. And then anything else would have been a bonus, right? Obviously, I want to make it 53, but then you have to look at, I have no history in America in terms of, film, in terms of having a high school coach, a college career, because that's really what basically decides what your NFL career is going to look like. Because, just like with anything, relationships is how you get opportunities. And for me, I was lucky enough that my talent gave me the opportunities to, first of all, be able to represent the NFL badge and a Bills badge for, more than 2 years, which is the average career of an NFL athlete. So I had 2 contracts, which is, I give God thanks for that. But then also to actually get the opportunity to play in pre-season, which people look at that like, oh yeah, you just played pre-season. Like, you have to realize that if you can't be trusted to play, you don't actually play in pre-season. So there's players who will be in the squad who've done training camp and stuff like that who won't see a single snap in pre-season. No matter who you are, like, for me to go over there and then actually get to play a whole game for the last game and then get a snap in the first game with some of the first team players and the second game, then they didn't play me the third game because I was actually like a credible, like athlete out there, which if I played all 4 games and I made big plays in all 4 games, then now it becomes political because if they don't sign me to their 53-man squad, then any other team can come and collect me and put me on their 53-man squad during the waivers, which is a 24-hour period where anybody can take whoever's left who hasn't been made 53. So, these are all the things that people, unless you're in America, you have to understand how it works. So for me, I lived my dream. I was able to go to the NFL, score a 68-yard touchdown, my first touch, and then make a 48-yard, receiving, like, break. And, unfortunately, my rugby instincts kind of took over when I should have run straight. So I would have had 2 touchdowns, but we don't like to talk about shoulda, woulda, couldas and stuff like that. But, for me, I reached my goal. The opportunities I was given, just like always in my career, I take them and I do the best I can. And, after that preseason, the following year came, COVID hit. So, there was no preseason. Then my last year, I got hurt. So I was unable to play because I was having surgery. So it's just, it's a shame. But, with the racing stuff now, I don't think it's as a bigger challenge as that. I think really now, like I said, it's really just looking at, seeing how I can elevate my game at this age, knowing that there isn't many coaches out there who really are about their stuff when it comes to, elevating players like myself. That's where the challenge will come. But like I said, as I've come this far, and, if I can't get it from coaches, I've always been able to lean on players. And I'm not short of, world-class players at racing. So, you've got Finn Russell, the magician, we call him Finn Marshall, Benji Marshall. But then you've got Warwick the Lion, even some of the young guns. You see, I'm not one of those guys who's like, he's a young pup, can't learn from him.
Absolutely. And before we sign off, on a lighter note, you mentioned him there, Finn Russell. I'm sure there's lots of people helping you set settle in generally in Paris at the training ground. Off the field, who's helping you settle in? And has Finn shown you the highlights yet of Paris?
Yeah, there's Finn for sure. He's been there, 4 or 5 years now. Some of the forwards, Sidat Gomsa, Hassan
Collinger. Yeah.
You know, I've been to dinner with those guys and Gail as well. Actually, we've had like a backs dinner as well with all of us the other day. I think Dimitri invited himself, but he's not a back. I love Dimi though. He's awesome. Who else? I mean, me and Warwick are pretty close, you know, as the fullback wing combinations anyway. We're always having little conversations. But to be honest, you know, being married now, you know, the wife comes first and stuff. We just had, you know, a couple of nights, a couple of dinner dates. But ultimately, the main thing's been trying to, you know, get our house and everything sorted out. And to be honest, with Racing as well, they have such a great setup. You know, we have like a sports coordinator who's been very helpful with a lot of the stuff, you know, anything to do with house and cars, you know, logistics as well, with like sorting out the hotel for the few weeks that we was here to begin with, helping finding a house, you know. I think I said that, yeah, helping find the house, any medical stuff, like, so there is quite a lot of support, which is, you know, it's what I'm used to now. You know what I mean? Before I went to the NFL, I wouldn't have been used to that. And I would have, and it was like, oh, this is like crazy, like mind blowing. But that's how I felt when I went to the NFL. So then coming back, you know, now it's kind of like, oh, this is awesome that we have this here as well. Because, you know, I wouldn't have expected this, because I know this was almost like, you know, levels up from, you know, what you usually get in the rugby world. So I think, you know, like I said, Racing definitely have, you know, the right mentality about how to take care of players, how to enable us to focus on the main thing, so that we, you know, there's as less distractions as possible. So and I think it's great. They should make a rule that if you want to own a rugby team, you have to be a billionaire. Otherwise,
get out.
You need it, yeah.
I think it's a fair rule, to be honest, because it's not cheap, you know what I mean? And we basically, a lot of teams try to do it the cheap way, and it's like, mate, we're professional athletes. Like, there's no shortcuts. You tell us we can't take shortcuts, but then, you know, in rugby there's just hella shortcuts. You know what I mean? It's a bit unbalanced, and, you know, you're gonna run into trouble, man. Tell World Rugby that one. That should be in the
more billionaires. Right. Get a notepad. More billionaires.
We can all agree on that. And on the flip side of more billionaires, the most interesting thing you said there, Christian, I think Johnny and I will both agree, the wife comes first. So we didn't talk about Finn showing you the high life in this club or that club. Maybe he's better off avoiding Finn's pub crawl of Paris.
Nah, Finn is expecting.
He is, mate.
Yeah. Settled now.
He left that life a long time ago, you know. So he's, you know what I mean. He knows as well that he's got to take care of the wife. You know what I mean. So there hasn't been any pub calls. I mean, I'm not really on the pub call stuff myself anyway. You know, if I am, I'll save it for end of season once we won some silverware and stuff. But, you know, I'm more of a chilled, you know, evening, like jazz, live music, few drinks, you know, some good food, you know what I mean? I like the good cuisine. I mean, there's plenty of different cuisines around in Paris, man. Like, I'm only just realizing that there's like different quarters for, like, you know, a Latin quarter and Italian quarter, like all of it. I'm like, mate, this is pretty cool, man.
It's next level. Well, you can take him for some jazz to help him wet the baby's head. I'm sure you'll love that, mate. Bit of live music, few drinks, couple of whiskeys. You'll love that. You can sort that for him.
For real. It's proper.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us, Christian. It's so good to hear you already immersed in the Parisian culture and loving life over there. And hopefully, like you say, some silverware at the end of this season. And then maybe we'll chat again next season when you're still there under Stuart Lancaster, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, man. I mean, we'll see, it'll be awesome to still be here and stuff. Um, but like I said, it's the business. You see, things change from year to year. And I might be, This might not be the attitude that obviously other rugby players have, but I don't know, because I know I'm used to before signing like 2, 3 years and stuff. But like I said, just being in the NFL now, it's just like, I guess I'm more on the edge of my seat, pushing for greatness, but also, not knowing what's going to happen. And I kind of like living in that space now as well.
You're an experienced man now, day by day, day by day.
Yeah.
Cheers, Christian. Thanks so much for joining us.
Speak to you guys later.
Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. See you there.
Obviously, great to have Christian on, Johnny. A deep thinker, someone who has got a lot to say, a lot of different experiences, and some of his takes were very interesting.
Yeah, I think the fundamental one that I can align with him is that you do get a lot of crap coaches in rugby. It's not a nice thing to say, but
he wasn't shy saying that, was he?
No, but what I like is that he's talented enough and he backs himself enough, and he's got the mental fortitude not to let his life be dictated to by poor coaches or the choices made by one or two coaches along his career. And he's even changed his sport. Like, if you go through his CV, he touched on towards them, but Premiership record try scorer for a period of time. Hat trick against the Babas. He ran in 3 tries past me in 2012. We all thought he was phenomenal, but then he didn't get any more caps. Went on to reach the pinnacle, so jumped England, played for British and Irish Lions, then decided to leave, went on the NFL International ID program to have the balls just to do that. He's in the 1%, like I said right at the start, that would choose to do that. But then actually to work your way through it, earn a contract, run in, again, we didn't touch on it, but run in a 55-yard touchdown on your first touch in an NFL game. It's ridiculous. The stuff this boy has done is phenomenal. Now, almost now age 31, for weirdly and different reasons, it's even harder. Like, he's not Gif to get on that roster and play and get the game time at Racing. Like, he's now on times against him, but the talent he has and the mental side that he has, he's on a different level with what he's done, what his CV suggests. And if he can stay at Racing, and if he can work with somebody like Stuart Lancaster, undoubtedly they get the best out of him. But I just enjoyed, like, he talked at length. We didn't even have to talk much to him. Like, it was just simple questions.
It's always better that way.
Exactly. But for everyone listening back home, a completely different character, one that you're probably not used to hearing from at all. But a real eye-opener into one of the world's best athletes and how they function, how they operate within a team sport, within 2 different team sports. And so it was really interesting, totally diverse and not what we're used to. But I loved listening. Towards the end, I wasn't even asking questions. I was just listening. But yeah, absolutely loved having him on, and a real character.
Right, we spoke a little bit about last weekend's action earlier on, but it's about time we found out what your meter moment of the week is, Johnny.
Comes from Lyon, mate, which is surprising considering what I said about them last week. But one heck of a week for Ethan Dumortier. 2 tries against Montpellier and a huge win away from home. Impeccable in there, where he took absolutely everything and made them look village. And he created the 3rd try with a 50-meter break himself. And he ended that all by being called up by Fabien Galtier for his first involvement in the French side. So amazing stuff for him. His performance, and Lyon is this week's meter moment of the week.
There we go. That was Johnny's meter moment of the week. And Meter is the world's #1 wireless meat thermometer, recently making over 20 million cooks better with their game-changing app and completely wireless Bluetooth meat probe. You can use it on a barbecue, in the oven, or in a pan, and you can get your hands on one at meter.com. Plus, you can get 20% off any full price item. All you have to do is enter the code FrenchPod20 at checkout. That's FrenchPod20, and you get 20% off any full price item at meter.com. Before we go, Johnny, we should have a quick word again about transfers. It's all kicking off.
Hey,
what have you heard?
Mate, there's about 1 million. Look, what's happening at Wasps isn't helping, but you've got Alfie Barbieri already tipped to Bordeaux, Vincent Koch to Stade Francais, B. Allo. We didn't really ask. We should have asked Christian, but potentially to Racing. He mentioned he knew him, good mate, potentially to Racing.
And also we mentioned Toulon's fly half search, maybe one there as well.
Yeah, so now looking like, well, again, French press reporting Dan Biggar likely or the favourite club to take him will be Racing. I don't know what that means for Finn Russell, but Jacob Umanga tipped to go to Toulon, Jack Nowell to Clermont or Racing, Josh Tuisova to Racing, with Kenny Lynn, the coach, following him as well from Lyon, and potentially George Bridge to Montpellier. So look, the conveyor belt has started. There's so much going on. The agents aren't going to be shy of a bonus or two for this year. But that's it. It's kicked off already, and you can tell as well. It's the cream of the crop. The middle market of people like me coming to France is kind of fallen away and gone. It's now your rock stars and nothing else. So there's some big money being thrown about.
Thanks, Johnny. A massive thanks to Christian Wade for joining us as well, and thanks to all you guys for listening. Make sure you hit subscribe. Leave us a nice review if you can as well. Check us out on RugbyPass and on YouTube, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, Johnny.
Cheers, mate.